Let's call on veteran journalist and foreign correspondent James Morrison, who joins us again from Newsmax Washington. James, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, JD.
Now, I was sitting here, and it's always dangerous for those of us with better verbal skills than mathematical skills to take a look at this, but I was sitting here and I could not help but note, here is Chairwoman Feinstein in 2014 talking about events prompted in the wake of 2001. Now, check my math, that's 13 years. I'm looking for a historical analogy. This is almost as if in 1954, in the Eisenhower era, Republicans controlling the U.S. Senate would take a look back at Franklin Roosevelt and what transpired December 7th, 1941, and in the aftermath with the use of what was then called the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services. Is that timeline about right?
I think that's about right, and I believe it's a very good analogy. And it gets down to what do you want your Secret Service to do? Good gracious, I mean, you want them to be fearless, you want them to be feared, you want them to be respected, and you want them to be clandestine, most of all. And I think you're absolutely right. It's also, you could go back and second guess anything in history. Was the use of the atom bomb correct to use over Hiroshima and Nagasaki? I would probably argue yes. But so far with what we've heard from Senator Feinstein, I don't think we've heard anything that we didn't already know. All of this has come out in leaks from the committee, and I'm still waiting, as we discussed earlier today, to figure out why this is being released as it is, what the motivation is, and the timing. I guess you probably are too, JD.
Well, it is very curious. It was worth noting at the outset of her remarks, Senator Feinstein said she would be yielding time to Senator McCain, so presumably now, as one of the senior members of the United States Senate, a senior Republican, Senator McCain will be able to give a bipartisan perception to this, and I don't know what Senator McCain is going to say, but presumably he would not be yielded time in opposition by Senator Feinstein. Go ahead, sir.
I think you're right, and I think we know that Senator McCain has opposed these techniques as well. But again, I've been reading some things that have come out just over the past hour from some pretty good journalists, and there are things about how one terrorist suspect was threatened with a drill that was apparently put close to his head but never used. Of course, they weren't going to drill into his head, but he didn't know that. And that's the important thing. The terrorist must not know how bad you can actually be if you're going to interrogate them, if you're going to get information out of them. And I might also add that what I've been hearing all morning from CIA officials, quite the opposite of what Senator Feinstein is saying. They actually have said that they got good information from these techniques. They actually said that after Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was waterboarded a couple of times, he laid out the entire organizational chart of Al-Qaeda and gave them information that they didn't know before.
And so correct me if I'm wrong, James, but I believe no less a prominent member of the intelligence community than George Tenet, who served as CIA director in his memoirs, made the case for what we commonly call waterboarding, saying that information was gained. So really, what we're getting here is a difference of opinion rather than an investigation of objective data, correct?
And I think you're absolutely correct. If you talk to CIA analysts, they will tell you that it's all like a jigsaw puzzle. You get one piece and another piece and another piece, and suddenly you have the whole picture. And for what an operative might see as actionable intelligence, somebody else might see as just something irrelevant. But to a trained analyst, that might be the piece that they're looking for to put everything else together. So yeah, I mean, unless you know more detail on this stuff, it still strikes me as a political attack against the Bush administration, all these years later.
James Morrison, we'll ask you to stand by. Let's return to the Senate floor and see what else Secretary Feinstein has to say in the time remaining.
Over the redactions to the report. We have been able to include some more information in the report today without sacrificing sources and methods of our national security. I'd like to ask, following my remarks, that a letter from the White House dated yesterday conveying the report also points out that the report is 93% complete and that the redactions amount to 7% of the bulk of the report.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, this has been a long process. The work began 7 years ago when Senator Rockefeller directed committee staff to review the CIA cables describing the interrogation sessions of Abu Zubaydah and al-Nashiri. It's been very difficult, but I believe the documentation and the findings and conclusions will make clear how this program was morally, legally, and administratively misguided, and that this nation should never again engage in these tactics.
Senator Dianne Feinstein, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, continues her floor speech in the United States Senate, explaining the whys and wherefores of the release of what is termed a Senate report on the CIA's use of, quote, enhanced interrogation techniques. Senator Feinstein and others saying, in essence, this was torture. Now, let me call again on James Morrison, the veteran foreign correspondent and veteran journalist in Washington. At least in terms of the political dimension of this here, James, when you have Dianne Feinstein take the floor of the Senate on this report, it takes the limelight away from the testimony of Jonathan Gruber, who called American voters stupid in terms of Obamacare, at least over on the House side. Suddenly, in the agenda-setting function, this is the hot hand politically and symbolic for the White House and the Democrats, is it not?
Oh, most definitely. This is the headline news of the day and probably through the evening and into tomorrow. And then, as we discussed earlier, you're likely to see repercussions. I predicted that this is the kind of spark that can light a firestorm in the Middle East. And it could be very dangerous for Americans over there. And if you just think about it, if you're a foreign correspondent or American diplomat or American aid worker, any place in the Middle East, the radicals think you're CIA anyways. Everybody's CIA. Rumor is truth. It's looking through the mirror darkly. It's a bizarre situation. And this will only add more tension to the situation because this will be an official government report that the United States tortures Al-Qaeda prisoners and things.
So Americans at risk. We've seen American journalists taken hostage. We saw, sadly,
Indeed,
the killing of a photojournalist just over the weekend in Yemen. It sets up a very unsettling picture. James Morrison, we thank you for your insights, for staying with us through the day. We'll continue to monitor what Senator Feinstein has to say, what Senator McCain will say alongside, and how it is received both in Washington and in other world capitals. As you may have noted, we departed from our typical day to cover this developing story from the United States Senate. We return tomorrow, 9 a.m. in the East, 6 a.m. in the West, making way now for Midpoint on Newsmax TV. Stay brave, stay free, stay tuned.